Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I am delighted to be sharing with you our guest today, Lynne Kelleher. She's a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Fox and Roach, and she's also the top 2 agent. I don't know about you, but that is pretty impressive. And I'll tell you why I know this in a minute. But she's won a plethora of awards, and she has more letters behind her name than you can shake a stick at, seriously. And the most powerful thing is that she's also a founder of 100 Plus Women Who Care, which is an organization that gives back to the community. So Lynne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm excited about this. So thank you for inviting me.
You know, I just recently, it was like last year, I went to one of the events, a real estate event where they honored like all of the top agents, in Colorado. And I was so impressed by this. I was like, gosh, what it takes to be the top 2% is pretty extraordinary. So I'm just going to throw like a big pat on the back for you.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about you and how you got to be where you're at today.
Okay, well, before I got into real estate, I was in the retail business and loved that. Had my own, I worked for a couple of larger stores. I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue for a couple of years and other local stores. I worked for the Gap. And at one point in time, I had my own children's stores called Spoiled Rotten Kids, and it was a blast. But when I opened that store with a friend of mine, that gave me kind of the bug for no one being the boss of me. I loved being my own. I loved being in charge of my own destiny. And of course, with that freedom is a lot of rewards, and can be also a lot of challenges. So I had that for several years. Had to get out. My partner kept it going for another year or two, but that enterprise stopped making money, and I needed to earn a living. My partner, not so much. So when I left that, I went and worked for the Gap, and opened a small store for them in my local town. And I went from being, the chief cook and bottle washer at Spoiled Rotten Kids to working for an organization where when you've got 900 stores, people aren't doing their own thing. And this T-shirt was folded in this way, and it was placed in this color way on this fixture in this location. And it was just really regimented, understandably so. But at that point in time, my children were little. I wasn't leading the kind of life that I really wanted to lead. So I left and got into the real estate business. And I chose real estate again because I was in charge of my own business. And so my successes were my own and my failures were my own. And that's what attracted me to it. Can't say that especially back then, this was in the 80s. This was pre-internet, pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram. Word processing wasn't even really going on at the time. So it took me quite some time to become successful at it and earn a living at it. But I just kind of devised a plan and stuck to it. And it's there's this book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. And it was that compounded effect of doing things in a thoughtful and a very strategic way that kind of built on each other, so that, several years into it, I was earning a living, and now I'm earning quite a living. And so that's why I like this industry, because it's every day is a new day, and you meet fabulous people along the way. You meet some not so fabulous people along the way, but nobody's the boss of me. And that's why I like this business.
I was joking with my husband. I said, if I were to go back, it's been almost, 28 years since I've worked for somebody else.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, I would work for someone for a day, maybe an hour, and realize this is not for me. And so let me ask you this, like, what has been, building your company and building a successful company, what would you say has been your biggest challenge or block that you've had to overcome?
The biggest challenge to overcome, and I think this is true in a lot of industries, is myself. It's standing back up and moving forward when you're knocked down, and in this business, you're continually knocked down. You don't get the listing, the sale doesn't go through, a client isn't happy, so the biggest challenge has been either getting out of my own way and finding the strength and the wherewithal to continue to move forward. Like when you're shot down and somebody doesn't list their house with you, or you work like a dog, and you put your heart and soul with a client who you've shown house after house after house to, and then they go into an open house and buy that with somebody else after you, because we're in the kind of business where you don't get paid if you don't perform. If the listing doesn't get sold, even though you've spent all this money marketing it, you don't get paid. You put buyers in your car and you drive them all over the place, and you show them house after house after house, and they don't buy, you don't get paid. So, that's been the biggest.
There's a lot of in the industry that you're in, any kind of like really like I feel like a brokerage kind of business. There's a lot of upfront work before you get paid.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that you're going to get paid at the end of the day. Even if you put in
Exactly
10,
right.
30, 40 hours on this one client, there's no guarantee. And now, of course, they sign a contract saying yes, but those contracts can be broken, under certain situations. So, so let me ask you this, because I think any business we can relate to, falling down. But there is something that is different from the entrepreneur that keeps getting back up every time we get knocked down, versus the entrepreneur gets knocked down 50 times and says, I'm done, I'm out. And I think that's an interesting place to be in, because that, I think, that's a defining moment of, between the great and the good, right?
Mhm.
So what have you kept in mind? What has been the tool? What has been the technique? What has kept you continuously getting up time after time?
I think the thing, and I will say this, it's just like next week will be my 45th wedding anniversary. Okay, 45 years to the same person. Okay,
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you. But the analogy is this: you don't get married when you're 19, like I did, and are still married 45 years later without a lot of work and some therapy, some marriage counseling, whatever. Same thing in real estate is, if you can't figure out how to, like, I'm a big like personal development kind of person. So, and I'm a continual student. So if you can't find for me, it's what's the lesson to be learned here in this failure, so that it's not, Lynn's a loser. It's what lesson does Lynn need to learn
Yeah.
to move forward? And that doesn't come without education, self-improvement, living. And I know this sounds so trite, but for me, it's really true. Living my life with a sense of gratitude, like, and so, those are the things that keep me kind of on track. And hey, I'm not telling you I don't get discouraged. And you know what? Do I crawl under the covers or have a good cry every now and again? Of course, but I try not to wallow in that. And for me, it's what's the lesson to be learned here that gets me back up? Because then I feel like, okay, here's the lesson. I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to work on that. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I think that the fortune is in the failure, right? Or what the
Yeah.
perceived failure is. And if we can get that, we keep that to the top of mind. It's like, okay, here it is. This was my life. This is the life lesson. I'm not going to do that again. I mean, that takes us, I mean, that's so much more powerful than any success, that we
Yes.
have. Like the fortunes and the failures. And I have said this before, but Sarah Blakely, I listened to her an interview that she was doing on a stage that I was at an event with, and she had said it there. She's like, her dad would always ask her when they were kids around the dinner table, like, what did you fail at today? And I think, I think, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. So I've been incorporating that into my parenting with my daughter is, looking at it, like, yeah, it was a failure. And what did we learn from it? Like, failure is not a bad thing. And if we can learn the lesson, it's powerful. And what the question I asked, and I just had a call today, and a client of mine, she's like, but this is what happened, like the world is coming to an end. And I said, okay, here it is, this is the reality. And she's already, and I helped guide her through like looking at the gifts of it. But I said, ask this question, like, what's right about this that you're not getting? And as soon as you have that clarity and that awareness or that insight, I mean, it's such a game changer. It's like, okay, what's right? So when you're feeling like everything's crumbling up, falling apart, oftentimes, we look at it as falling apart, but really oftentimes it's falling together. It's just a different perspective of it. But like, what's right about this that I'm not getting? And that is so valuable. So I love that.
Yeah, I just think that's really, I think that's really critical. And for me, another thing that I'll say is that, and I see it amongst my coworkers, is that, you achieve a certain level of success, and you don't think there's anything more to learn. And for me, complacency is the kiss of death. Like, if you're, and I know it sounds like I'm a Pollyanna, but I do think that if you're not that there's not times to rest, but I think you got to always think to yourself, what else is out there for me to learn? What do I need to like fine tune? Like, and so that, I'm into that too. Because I think complacency, I really do think it's the kiss of death, that if you already think you know everything and there's no place more especially to improve, especially in this world that we live in,
I mean, there's always something to learn. And if you do feel like you've mastered, I always say that there's two paths, there's a student path and the master path. And yes, anytime we learn something new, we go into that student path, and we can be on that student path for 6 months, 6 years, 16 years, but we learn enough that we can move up to the master path, and we've learned it. So I am guessing that you're on the master path of real estate, but that doesn't mean to say that you're not going to take up, something else to learn, or a hobby, or I mean, it's just, we're always, and as lifelong learners, we're always learning and expanding, and things are shifting and changing and staying above. And I have seen myself, when folks get to a place where they kind of just rest on their laurels and just expect, things to be the way they were. And then, more often than not, those people get passed up. Technology. I mean, that
yes,
was the blockbusters, right? That's the blockbusters. That was the
yes,
the reason why they didn't reinvent their business and didn't stay with the times because things were changing. They didn't become aggressive and progressive to stay, ahead of the time, because they could have had the next Netflix, right? Like they could have had, whatever. So I do think that, it's important for us to all, be eager and have that lust for learning, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And the other thing too is I find I see with a lot of people that newer agents, and I don't mean new age-wise, I mean new to the industry, is that like from the beginning, I treated my business like a business, and that's, of course, that's the other thing too. When you're self-employed, while nobody's the boss of you, there's also nobody making you do what you need to be doing to be successful. So it's easy to kind of get caught in the quagmire, and that of the day-to-day operation of a business, and not being able to take that kind of bird's eye view and look down and say, and to work on your business, not just in your business. And I think that's part of where the education and the constant, the webinars, and there's so much available,
Yeah. Especially
that
just having your own business. I mean, gosh, you're right, absolutely right. There's always something to learn and expand, and especially as you're building team and you build, leadership skills, and just it's so encompassing. It's
it
so
is.
encompassing.
It is. When you're responsible for everything, sometimes it's hard to, and I do it myself. It's hard to kind of not do the mundane because it's easier, versus, the really things that are going to take your business to the next level, which oftentimes aren't the easier things to do,
Yeah.
and so
I always have to stack those things because I get distracted by the yummy, juicy things. So things that go into creation mode for me to create, like, oh my, like I get excited. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I get to like da da da, or I get to brainstorm this. Right. Last night I was like laying in bed and I was like, oh, my director of operations said you need to come up with some names for this thing. I'm like, okay, but I have to oftentimes put that as the carrot. So I put in the tasks that do not bring me as much joy, or I will outsource as much as I can. But then that will be the carrot. I'm like, oh, once I get this done, I get to play this, and it is mind games that we play on ourselves, right? And everyone's like,
you got
I
to.
don't get it. Like, why is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but it brings me joy and it makes me happy, and I can't wait, and it works for me. So if you have to carrot stick something, do it. Like.
And you figure out those things that, what are the things, whether it's dangling the carrot, whether it's time blocking, whether it's whatever, eating the frog at the beginning of the day, whatever it is, you figure out what kind of works for you. But
what's the motivation for you?
Yeah. So yeah, those are the things that kind of, but I people's, when in one of your initial questions, like what's going on today, that's preventing you, from taking your business forward. And I think my response to your initial inquiry was, there's nothing that's preventing me from moving forward except for me. Like, and I own that, and I think, you got to own that if you're ever going to move forward.
Entrepreneurs, that, and that's my jam. I was a therapist for 25 years, and I combined energy psychology and then applied the principles of quantum physics. And so I just love talking all things mindset and what gets in the way of ourselves from really truly taking our business to the next level. And, more often than not, the fingers point back to us.
Yes.
It's our motivation, it's our determination, it's our stinking thinking, it's our self-sabotage, it's the excuses, it's not taking, it comes back on us, and it's a direct reflection of what we're doing. And folks that are, committed to personal growth and personal development and constantly learning and growing get it. And they say, yes, I get it. Like I can take ownership for that. And man, there's fantastic days and there's great days that are like, okay, I'm out of alignment. How do I get back into alignment quicker and faster so that I can continue to generate and create with more ease
Right,
in
and
my life?
sometimes you are out of alignment, and sometimes you just need to step back and do a little self-soothing, or whether it's a book or a glass of wine or whatever. But you can't live there.
Yeah.
As Mary Fran Bontempo says, is this a bad patch, or are you living there? And you
Yeah.
don't want to live there,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's easier said than done. But like, I try not to, I have a bad day, or I lose a listing, or a client, ends up buying through somebody else. Hey, I'll wallow in a day because I'm pissed off and it ain't right. But I don't live there,
Yeah.
because
And
that
you back up
starts
again.
that downward spiral.
Exactly. It starts the downward spiral, and it's harder to get out of it when you're at the bottom of it versus at the top of it and being like, I
Yep.
have personal choice. And now it's like, okay, next. One of the things that oftentimes I got a great mentor of mine years and years ago was when I was just learning how to, really taking a stage and speaking. And I'm like, gosh, I bombed that stage. And he's like, you know what? I have one word for you. All you have to do is say next. And I'm like, oh, that's it? Oh, what? And I don't know what it was, but energetically, it just felt so good. I was like, oh, okay, next. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm next. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on my growth curve and I am learning, and I just, I still to this day, I use that in so many different aspects of my life. It's just like, okay, next, we're on
Yep.
to the next.
Yep.
I wasn't 100%, but that doesn't make me a bad or wrong person. I just wasn't 100% and we're moving
Right.
on. So,
Yeah.
I love it.
Got to.
Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
No, I guess, the other thing I guess I would say is that, the whole, I try and look at things a little bit more globally, not globally in a world sense, but in a community sense, and that's kind of where that when I started my charity, 100 Women Who Care, I didn't, I can't take credit for it because I stole the idea from another chapter in a neighboring county. But they helped me get up and running. And now my 100+ Women Who Care are now 250 women who care. And that too has kind of, grown organically. And when you believe in something and you put yourself out there, to try and do good, and to try and be kind, and to try and make a difference, I just really think that whole mindset of what you put out there in terms of good comes back to you tenfold, really has been true for me. And
Yeah.
I think, that, again, when I was growing my business, you didn't do things to try and reach people to get an immediate return. It's a community thing, that what you put out to this person and to that person, well, then sometimes that good gets passed on, and five passes down the road, down the line, then that's when it comes back to you. But you don't, that's not the intent. So, I just kind of feel like that. I know I sound like a Pollyanna, and here's the sad thing. The other day, I said that to a group of millennials, and they didn't know who Pollyanna was, but which was
I'm right there with you, sister. I speak that language too. So
that was a little sobering. But I think that when you do that, that kindness and generosity and a sense of gratitude, it really does come back to you. So,
I think sometimes we as humans try to overcomplicate things, but if we just bring it back to the simple basics, what you just said, and just live in that simplicity, like it all works. It all works. We don't
It
have
does.
to overcomplicate things.
Yep.
You know, gratitude, starting with a gratitude, ending with gratitude, being kind to our neighbors, sending love, being of love. Like it really can be that simple. But we as humans want to complicate things and make things a lot more
It's not
difficult.
complicated.
It's not
It
complicated.
really isn't.
Yeah.
Just be a kind and decent person who
Yeah.
gives to others without expecting something in return, and
Yeah.
you'll get it'll come back to you tenfold.
Yeah.
So,
Beautiful. Well, Lynn, this has been absolutely delightful. Where
yay.
can people find more about you?
Well, if there are people out there that are interested in finding out more about 100 Women Who Care, even if they're out of my area, and would like to know more about that and how to maybe implement something like that in your own communities, they are more than welcome to reach out for me, because I've helped a couple other people get started, and I'm happy to help anybody in your group. So I can be reached at Lynne, Lynne, at Lynne Kelleher, LYNNE, KELLEHER.com. My cell phone is 215-813-6655. My website
Perfect.
is lynnkelleher.com, and I'm an open book. So
I love it. All
yeah.
right, folks, she did it. She dropped her cell phone on this podcast. So I just say, blow her phone up and just say, "Hey, I heard you, and I just want to send you a love note via phone." So, all right,
That would be
so
awesome.
1-800 got love. Oh my gosh, I love it. So, okay, such a delight. Thank you for being such a huge contribution. I mean, every time that people show up and they play big, I truly believe that we have this ripple effect that we leave. Um, we invite people and we give other people permission to play at that level too. So thank you for playing at that
Yay.
level and continue to influence, women and people around you to do the same.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. It was a delight.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.